All right, at for sure, for the last two sessions yan po ay napanood na po ninyong lahat at for sure we are very confident na alam po nating lahat dito sa ating mga participants kung ano po ang proyektong ito. And I would also like to take this time to acknowledge ang ating pong PSA Executive Director, nandiyan po si Attorney Guillermo Iroy. Sir, magandang hapon po. Also to, again, sa mga PSI consultants po natin na nandito from different parts of the country, magandang hapon po. And to deliver his welcome remarks on behalf of the PSC board, can we all welcome PSC Commissioner Ramon Fernandez. Com, you can kindly unmute po.
Okay, yeah, I did. It does it. Thank you, Josh. Excuse me. Thank you, everyone. Good afternoon again to all of you, to all the participants nationwide to this third session of the National Sports Summit, where we will be talking about Grassroots Development Program. I'd like to thank you ahead of time for joining this very important summit so that we can really plan the future of Philippine sports. This has been very much lacking in the past, really. We need to convene and converge and talk about plans, which we hope we can plan things out after all this session. So in behalf of the Philippine Sports Commission, I'd like to welcome you all. Just for your information also about Grassroots Development Program, so I can share with you a bit. At the onset of our term, one of the very first things that we did was to go around the country and talk to the LGUs, to the mayors and governors. We talked to DepEd, precisely to streamline, and especially for the local government units, to encourage them to put up their own sports commissions, sports offices. So because we believe the LGUs and the DepEd have the talents. The children resides in the LGUs and are studying at the DepEd in the different schools all over the country. So tinarget namin yon. We spoke to them and encouraged them. We talked to several mayors already, and they are doing very well in their sports program. That can be seen by the results in the Batang Pinoy and the Palarong National, Philippine National Games rather, the PNG. But then again, minalas tayo, tinamaan tayo ng pandemic na tigil lahat ng grassroots development program natin. We went all over the Visayas and in some areas in Mindanao and Luzon to start the children's games. These are for children 12 years old and below, maybe 10 to 12, And in the Visayas area, where I am the oversight commissioner and where I hold office, in 2017, we started the Visayas Games, the Philippine Sports Commission Visayas Games. We finished it for the whole year of 17, and we were planning to expand that in 2018 for the Mindanao Games and the Luzon Games. But again, sad to say, the one of the number one major problem ng Philippine Sports Commission is really the funding. We have to accept that. Although lumaki na during our term, lumaki na yung nabibigay ng PAGCOR. Papasalamat tayo sa PAGCOR because lahat ng mga grassroots sports programs and even the elite program is funded by the NSDF, which is coming from PAGCOR. So we're hoping that the COVID will relax a bit, or we will be vaccinated all, hopefully by the end of the year or early next year, so we can start over again with our grassroots national program. So this is very timely. As I said, we have to come together because we, the PSC, cannot do it alone. we need the support of the LGUs, no, and even the private sector. So with that, thank you very much for joining, and hoping to see you when this pandemic eases up. Maraming salamat, daghang salamat kaninyong tanan.
Maraming salamat po again to our PSC Commissioner Ramon Fernandez. Maraming salamat po for the welcome remarks. And alam niyo po, today's session is one of the many lectures na mangyayari po sa ating first phase ng National Sports Summit. Sinabi po kanina ng sports conversations will be presided over by recognized figures from local to the international sports scene to deliver short lectures in the online conference format. And afterwards po, as usual, as we do, nagkakaroon po tayo ng open forum to be facilitated para po i-gather po ang inyong mga insights and views as a synthesis for every session. And alam niyo po, to help us on that matter, we ask the help of one of our friends and to moderate our open forum today. And I would just like to introduce her. She is a veteran journalist and with 24 years of journalistic experience as a club reporter, correspondent, a reporter, a sports editor of Sunstar Davao. Currently, a sports columnist and contributing writer of Sunstar Davao and a full-time informative copywriter of New Zealand-affiliated company Dash 10 Managed Services, and a part-time English professor of Davao City-based Japanese college, Mindanao Kokusai Daigaku. She has also served as the PSC's media coordinator for Davao from October 2016 to May 2020 and has been a regular resource speaker of the PSC's Sports Journalism Seminar Series. And lastly, she's a Davaoeña. This Davaoeña sports scribe is also an 8-time champion of the National Milo Marathon Davao Sports Writing Contest. Can you help me in welcoming our moderator for this lecture, Miss Marian L. Saberon Abalayan? Hello, ma'am. Good afternoon po.
Hi, good afternoon. Magandang hapon po sa inyong lahat. Maayong hapon sa tanan. Good afternoon, everyone. At this point, it is really a great pleasure and a great honor for me to introduce a very distinguished speaker in sports and in physical education. He is a former dean, College of Sports of Physical Education and Recreation of the Mindanao State University, Marawi City, Philippines. He is also a Master of Science in Leadership and Management in Sport and Sports Psychology in the University of Oregon, USA. He is a Fulbright Scholar and UO International Scholar. And he also specializes in sports management, physical education, sports psychology, coaching education. He is the Dean of the Philippine Sports Institute of the Philippine Sports Commission. He is a proponent of the SMART ID, a grassroots sports talent identification and development program, Grassroots to the Greatness, Playground to Podium, and the National Coaching Certification Program. Let's all give a virtual applause to our author, athlete, coach, sport missionary, and international speaker, Professor Henry Daut.
Hello. Magandang hapon sa lahat. Assalamualaikum. Greetings of peace from Mindanao, from our Muslim brothers. I would like to take this opportunity to express my thanks and gratitude for that very generous introduction from Marian. And of course, to the Philippine Sports Commission for giving me this opportunity to be part of this very significant endeavor in the development of sports in the country. So to Chairman Ramirez, thank you very much. And to all the commissioners, Commissioner Kiram, Commissioner Fernandez, Commissioner Agustin, and of course, Commissioner Raymond Maxi. I would like to start by giving an appreciation to all those who signed up to be part of this endeavor. This is a very vital time where we can sit and discuss very important aspects of sports development in the country, particularly at the grassroots level, as what Commissioner Ramon Fernandez had said a while ago. And my topic is on, I would like to share my presentation. Okay, so this is my topic, grassroots sports in the Philippines toward sports for life and sports for glory. I would like to start by sharing with you the content of what we will be discussing today. We will be defining the term and identifying the concepts of grassroots sports, the influencers of grassroots sports, and of course, the status of grassroots sports in the Philippines, what PSC is doing in the field of grassroots sports development, and let us look at the challenges and opportunities for Philippine sports as part of this discussion. So I would like everyone to be part of this discussion, and I know all of you are familiar with the term grassroots. So let me start by sharing with you my experience in the grassroots program. In 1982, a year after I was hired as a faculty at the College of Spear, as a badminton enthusiast, I organized the MSU Puna Club. MSU Puna Club, Puna is an old name for badminton. And about 20 kids, children of faculty and staff of the university joined in the training. And in 1982, we have the honor of hosting the badminton icon, national champion, and coach Danny So, together with Mr. Pakli Bar, in conducting the first ever badminton clinic at Mindanao State University. Why am I showing this? Because I believe this is a good example of how grassroots can produce champions, not only in sport, but also in life. And I would like to highlight two of the participants in this club. On the right is Mr. Arolas Amahit Bogs, as we all know. And on the left side is attorney Mark Pabian Castrodes, both original members of the Puna Kids. So I would like to highlight only the journey of Mr. Amahit from a young budding athlete, lanky and growing to become a future champion. He is actually a member of the Philippine national team and become the member of the national coaching team. So as a member of the national team, he went on to win medals for the country. And when he was coaching, he was also able to produce national champions, which I believe is a pathway for him to start from being a player at a young age to becoming a successful sports professional in coaching in his older years. And so this is an example of how we can show that grassroots, if taken care properly, can produce what we really want to happen for sports in our country. And to highlight, I have here three of the most successful members. We have Arolas Amahit, a national coach. We have Raymond Gallegues, a former Dean of Student Affairs at the Ateneo Grade School in Manila. And of course, one of the most successful entrepreneurs and also a public speaker and a host in news television, attorney Mark Fabian Castrodes. And we have produced not only these three, but also a lot of engineers, doctors, nurses, and physical educators. So I'm sharing this because many of us perhaps are also doing this when we were starting our careers in sports. And with that background, I believe that Philippine sports, when we take care of the grassroots, we take care of the future of sports in our country. Okay? So I would like to start by asking ourselves if we have a common understanding of what grassroots is all about. We have a definition that is common to all. Do we know the concepts, what we are doing in terms of the grassroots? So it is very important that we have a common base to start with. And I would like to offer a definition taken from Webster. I think all of us are familiar with the word grassroots, and it is said that grassroots refers to the very foundation of our source. That means it is the source of anything like the grass, the plant, and etc. It is also the basic level of society or an organization, and it is the basic movement from nothing. So like actual grassroots, they start from the ground and up. So alam natin kung ano ang grassroots, and now we know that it starts from nothing and produce something. So it starts from the ground and it grows up. Then we go to the definition of what grassroots sports is all about. The European Commission defined it as a grassroots sport means organized sport practiced at the local level by amateur sports people and sports for all. This is a high level group on grassroots sports created by the European Commission. It says grassroots sports is physical leisure activity, organized and non-organized, practiced regularly at non-professional level for health, educational, or social purposes. So understanding what grassroots sports is all about will give us an idea on ano ba talaga ang concept na ina-apply ng grassroots sports development in our country. Okay, so we will go to the next, which is the explanation why grassroots sports is actually for everyone. When we say grassroots sports, it does not discriminate anybody. It can be of any size, of any shape, color, or faith, which offers educational values, health benefits, social opportunities, and sporting worth. It also is a vehicle for educational, social, and sporting development. And of course, today, grassroots sports is recognized as a tool to encourage a more active and healthy lifestyle among the population. So we are getting the idea that grassroots sport is not just about producing talent, but producing healthy citizens. Grassroots sports is extremely important, according to Tapikar, he is an Indian, to any developing sporting nation. It is a foundation for sports for life and for high performance sport. But more importantly, when delivered well, it creates immense value and develops more talents for the country in the years to come. So this explanation of Tapikar shows us that sports can be as a means to develop a citizen that is participating in sport until they get old. And also for performance sports, wherein PSC is involved in terms of developing our elite athletes. So what do we mean then by grassroots sports development? I believe that grassroots sports development is not just about producing child prodigies or wonders. And that is when we talk about grassroots sports as a sport for glory. An example of that is Palarong Pambansa, Batang Pinoy. So we always consider Batang Pinoy, Palarong Pambansa as a grassroots sports program. However, it is about ensuring that every kid has access to the most basic resources needed to practice or participate in sport and gain benefits from it. And this is where the sports for life concept comes in. And when we make an example of this, we refer to PSC's children's games, Larot Saya, or any activity that the community or individuals are doing for the sake of playing, for the love of sport, and for the benefit. So when we deal with grassroots sports development, we should not only focus on thinking that it is to develop champions, to develop highly skilled athletes, but more significantly, it is a process of providing opportunity for every kid to have access to practice, participate, and gain benefits from sport. I hope that is clear with us, because later on, we will decide whether what we are doing is Sports for Glory grassroots program or Sports for Life grassroots program. Okay, So these are the two concepts that I would like to present to you, that when we talk about grassroots sports development, we are talking about a process of developing sports for life and developing sports for glory, wherein we wanted our country to be represented in international meets and win medals. And I think we all want to actually claim that first Olympic gold in 2021. So we will be praying for that. And PSC is leaving no stone unturned in preparing our athletes to win that elusive gold. Okay. So when we talk about sports for life, it is a general approach to grassroots sports development. And it is about the possibility of bettering society. That means by having a good Sports for Life grassroots program, we will be able to better our society because it will improve the physical, mental, and well-being of our people. And it will also regenerate communities, unite them, develop them into a cooperative members of the community, and therefore become more productive. Likewise, it can also address crime and antisocial behavior. So PSC has been doing sports for the drug dependents, and also sports for those who are on the streets. And for the educational aspect, sports for life, which is a concept of grassroots sports development, can enhance education. Many studies have shown that participation in sports and physical activity actually enhances academic performance. And therefore, we should be making use of participation in sports for our children to make them better in school. And as what Chairman Ramirez has been advocating, sports can be a vehicle for peace. And this is very important. And finally, when we apply sports for life and make a positive contribution to the economy and society. And this is how Spencer Harris viewed sports participation in the general term. So we have sports for life, which is a general approach, which means that we are not very much thinking into just looking for the possibility of identifying a talent in a specific sport, but more into providing everyone the chance to play, to enjoy, and benefit from participation. The other concept of grassroots sports is sports for glory. When we talk about sports for glory, here it is more focused, it is more specific, which means basketball would like to develop good athletes. So specific because they want to win medals, they want to win championship, among others. It is about the development of the sport. One, athletes or players. Two, coaches, the clubs or the teams. And of course, the focus is more on the competitions. So when we talk of sports for glory, this is more specific to attaining excellence in sport, developing competitive teams to participate in international competition, and more likely to win medals. So the focus on this is identification, selection, and development of talents for the bare purpose of sporting glory. So later, we will be combining these two in order to really see a big picture on how we should approach grassroots sports development without sacrificing one or the other. Okay. Therefore, there is a need to have a clear understanding of what grassroots sports is all about. So when we say clear understanding, in the case of the Department of Education, if they rely only on developing the athletes that they have identified, and there are very few of them, maybe in one school, 100, there might be 1,000 students, and you are neglecting the opportunity for grassroots sports development of the 900 because we are too focused on the 100. Okay, so that's an example. That means there is a need that how are we going to approach grassroots sports in the schools, in the community? Second, we need to widen the base for sports development. We need to have greater participation among the population. The more choices we have, the better selection we can get. Okay, so we need to expand the base. We just have to make sure that every Juan or Maria will have that opportunity to participate in the grassroots sports program. That's why we go out to the mountains, like in Davao del Norte. They went to Talaingod and discover a lot of talents that if we did not do that, we will just be waiting for somebody to excel in the schools. I remember Commissioner Ramon Fernandez the other day showed us a video of a young boy doing the tumbling. And I was seeing that he could be better than our current champion, Yulo, had he been given the chance. But he was not identified. He was not selected. And therefore, he was not part of the development program in gymnastics. So maybe we can learn from that. Third, the greater the number, the more chances of identifying potential talents in sports. And that is what is very important. By expanding our talent base, we also expand our choices and selection process. And number four, to have greater participation, we need to provide access and opportunity for everyone to engage in sport and physical activity. So this is problematic because not many communities are provided with sports facilities and even with equipment. So I am supportive of the idea of Mr. Giovanni that sport should be included as one of the seal of governance in the local government so that importance of sport will be highlighted. Okay, so that's it. Now, I'd like to share with you my idea on the influencers of sport development because these are very important on how we are going to move forward in terms of sports development, not only in the elite, but also in the grassroots. Here we have the human component and the other one are the support programs that we have. First, any sports program will not prosper if it has no clear program. Okay. Second, any program will not develop if it lacks funding. And I think Commissioner Commissioner Fernandez highlighted it, the lack of funding. And of course, program funding, but lacking in human resources, you have nowhere to go. So we need to have qualified, adequate human resources to manage or develop programs. And of course, the fourth, infrastructure. And this is what PSC has been doing, improving the facilities around the country. And I hope that local government will have that opportunity to build more structures or offer more facilities for people to participate in sport because it is available. And of course, equipment. I just hope that PSC or any corporation can come up with developing the sports industry where equipment can be produced in our country to lessen the cost. Presently, we are buying equipment, quality equipment from abroad that makes it expensive. And finally, research. I included research because without research, there will be no development. Our country relies so much on the results of the findings of researches made from other countries. And we should know that we have different practices, we have different build, genes, and etc. And we need to study our own people so that the results can be applied and benefit our athletes or our programs. Now, on the other side are the influencers of sports development, to include grassroots, that we need to attend to. Okay, so we have, of course, the athletes, the coaches, the community, the media, the sponsors, the spectators, the NSA or the POC, the government or the PSC, the officials or game officials, the schools, and the most important, the families, the parents, the peers. So looking at these influencers, we need to make sure that we have a cooperative partnership with all this, because if parents will not allow their athletes to participate or will not support them, nothing will happen. If we have coaches who are not qualified and competent, no amount of talent will result to development. And all the other components or influencers impact the development of sports in the country. Okay, so I will not be dealing with this very much because this is not the main topic that we will have. And so I would like to focus on the major players in grassroots sports development. So one, family, the school, the community, the government, the sport associations, the private sector, and the media. So we'll take it one by one. So when we talk about the family, we talk about support, motivation, and participation. If parents support their children in their pursuit for sports participation, like providing them with equipment, providing them with apparels, it doesn't have to be expensive as long as they can provide something that their kids can play on. And of course, the motivation. Athletes or kids are motivated to play when they see their parents are also playing. And that is where participation comes in. The family that plays together, stays together, and enjoy together. So it is very important that the family, the basic unit of our society, is encouraged to support, to motivate, and participate in sport, especially showing or modeling to the younger generations. Okay, so that's the family. Second, by the way, one way to promote sports is to make sure that there is some value in participating. And I have developed this slogan that I say to encourage people to participate. And I said, most of the things that a child can learn in life can be learned in sport and through sport. And it is very true. I think all of us will agree that in sport, we learn discipline, respect, integrity, cooperation, teamwork, camaraderie, self-confidence, among others. And through sport participation, we experience those excitement of winning and losing. We develop resilience, coming back, bouncing back after a defeat, and excellence. That means striving to become better. So I always say to my friends who have children that if you want your child to learn a lot in life, bring them into sport and let them play. Okay, so I hope we can also learn from this. Second, the schools. We all know that the school is a big seed banks of talents. Just imagine one school with 1,000 students. Multiply that by thousands of schools around the country. So you will have millions of seeds just waiting to be developed. So we always say that the schools is a strong partner for sports development. And that is why PSC and DepEd is trying to come up with an MOU to partner to make sure that we see the same goal that we have in terms of sports development in the country. And the three areas where schools can contribute are the following. Physical education. Because in physical education, this is the foundation where they learn the fundamentals if they have not yet learned it outside from their parents or from the clubs. So we need to make sure that physical education is given high priority, given importance, and given support. So that's very important. Second, school sports. And this is where we talk about sport for glory. We want to make sure that school sports like Palarong Pambansa, regional meets, local meets are taken care of, wherein kids are given equal opportunity to participate. They have good experience playing, and the way it is conducted will not actually affect their academic performance. And of course, club sports. It is where sports for life and glory can also happen. And for the schools, especially only a few will become members of the varsity team of every school. And therefore, there are so many other students waiting to have that opportunity to also learn, enjoy, and become better. And club sports should be encouraged in every school. So I think DepEd, private schools, and the higher education can look into the possibility of strengthening the physical education programs, improving the quality and qualifications of physical educators, developing an effective school sports competition, and promoting club sports for those who are not included in the varsity program. Next, we go to the community. Here we refer to the local government, the DILG, of course. And here we are going to ask, do they have sports programs? Lahat ba ng mga communities or LGUs merong sports development program? Exceptional, syempre yung sa DABNOR. We have just learned last week that they have a very, very strong and effective sports development program that I think the ILG can make use to replicate around the country. And we congratulate the local government of Dabnor, especially the leadership of its governor and my good friend, Mr. Giovanni Gulanes. Second, do we have sports leaders who are qualified, competent, motivated, and passionate enough to make sure that the sports programs are implemented effectively and equally? Okay, so not many people assigned to sports coordinators are graduates of PE or sports if we consider those backgrounds as qualification. But it does not follow that those who are not cannot become better. Okay, so we need sports leaders. Do we have sports leaders? Now, teachers are already filled with work in the school, that working in the community may be an added burden. Okay, so we need the community, the local government units to develop strong sports leaders, not only among the adult, but particularly among the youth. Third, do we have enough or adequate sports facilities or infrastructure within our local government? Do we have basketball courts in the subdivision, in a small community that they can play, an open space that they can go to participate in physical activities? So maybe there's a need to look into the housing or planning of the area wherein priority should be given to a requirement for construction of sports facilities. And finally, sports funding. So this is always where we are having problems, sports funding. But we are not supposed to be reliant only in the government. We need to be resourceful in finding those sources. And sports is a multi-billion-dollar business. And if we can tap those resources, we can get funding, not necessarily big, but enough to make sure that our programs will be sustained. So we have parent, family, school, community. Then we go to the government. And in the previous slides, prior to the opening, you have seen and heard what PSE is all about, what it is doing. And I just would like to emphasize the four. One, sports leadership. Of course, PSE is the highest governing body of Philippine sports, and it provides leadership in terms of programs, activities. Number two, sports governance. Okay. Number three, sports programs. That's why even in the midst of pandemic, PSC is not resting, is not relaxing, but intensifying its programs and its delivery. And finally, sports funding. We all know that the funding for elite sports is provided by the government through the Philippine Sports Commission. And it also includes funding for grassroots sports. So this is the role of the Philippine Sports Commission. And by working with the Senate and the House of Representatives in partnership with them, we hope that we can get more funding resource to support the plans of the Philippine Sports Commission to promote the development of sports in the country. Now let's go to the next, which is the Sports Association. By the way, as presented earlier, POC is a private entity. However, NSAs, where coaches and athletes belong, are provided financial support in the form of salaries and allowances by the government through the Philippine Sports Commission. So here, the question is, the sports-specific leadership in the NSAs. That means they have their own set of officers, they have their own set of programs, and the question is, do we have a strong and united sports association? Because a fragmented association will not help in developing sports. Okay, so we need to make sure that NSAs also exemplifies strong leadership that will assist the national government, the PSC, in developing sports in the country. Of course, the sports associations are responsible in the sports training and development of athletes that were selected and identified for representation. They are also involved in determining where to compete, okay? And they are responsible, supposed to be, in the sports promotion. That's why they have clinics all over the country promoting their sports, trying to find talents. And of course, they should have sports programs, not only for the elite, but importantly, for the grassroots. Okay, so that's for the sports association. Now, how about this private sector? Here we have the individuals or the corporations. When we talk about the private sector, we talk about sponsorship, we talk about sports programs, we talk about sports business. And we all know that many in our country's corporation are into sports because this is one good way of promoting their brand. They get popularity in terms of the brand that they are selling by the representation of the athletes that they are sponsoring. Okay. Likewise, sports businesses, I think, gets a tax refund or some kind of benefits for taxation. And we should encourage more companies, more individuals to invest in sports, not because they want to be popular, but because this is a social responsibility that they can also be proud of. Okay, so as I've said, when we are lacking in funding, the private sector, the corporation can be a source of funding for our sports program. We just have to make a very good proposal. Okay. And finally, we have the media, which is one of the key components of grassroots sports development, because through the media, it can help promote sport. So media is really vital. And nowadays, we have a lot of means, the television, the newspapers, the broadcast, and of course, we have the social media as a tool for promotion. So all this, the family, the school, the community, the government, the NSA, the private sector, and the media contribute to make sure that sports, especially in the grassroots, will develop to the fullest. Okay, so that's all. Now let's go then to what is the status of grassroots sports in the Philippines. We have been hearing about a lot of programs in the Philippines. Do we really have grassroots sports programs? Are they sustainable and effective? Are they general or specific in nature, or is it sports for life and or sports for glory? Okay, so PSC, the mandate through RA 6847 gives emphasis on grassroots sports participation. So that is one specific mandate, and that is why Chairman Ramirez and the commissioners makes it a point that the flagship program in the grassroots sports will really be sustained, and that is the children's games, among others. Second is to encourage wide participation of all sectors. That's why we are being encouraged not only to become part of the influencers, but also part of the stakeholders that will help shape the future of Philippine sports. And that includes government, private, amateur sports promotion, and development. So kasama lahat. No one left behind, kumbaga. And third, to supplement government appropriation for sports promotion and development. So PSC is trying its best to have access to more funding by lobbying to the senators and the congressmen for additional funding to sports in the country. So with that, I would like to present to you the Grassroots Sports Development Programs of the Philippine Sports Commission. And I'm very happy and privileged to be part of the PSC as its consultant because it is an honor to serve through sports. And I know all of you is going to help. All of us will be helping one another. And these are the programs of the Philippine Sports Commission. One, enhance children's games. When we say enhance children's games, we will give more opportunities for other activities, other avenues wherein games for the children will be more fun, will have more benefit, and it is not going to be just what others are saying, just sack race. Kasi kung minsan, may mag-comment na pasack race lang yung children's games. What is the purpose? If we go back to our definition of what concepts we have to make, sports for life fills in the response through the children's games. That means we don't have to have those high level skills for kids to play. We want them to enjoy and celebrate life so that they become interested in playing. So PSC is trying to do that and enhance children's games that when the pandemic is over, we will be going back face to face. And of course, the player development pathway that we have proposed at PSC, we call it the Smart ID system in partnership with the SMART team. I will explain later what this means. This is the Grassroots Sports Development Program in producing elite athletes by the PSC. Third, continuing coaching education and certification. I'm very happy that in spite of the pandemic, the coaching certification program of PSC is moving forward, and we are already scheduling series of certification legs all over the country. Number 4, expanded indigenous peoples games. We cannot disregard that our indigenous peoples are part of our society and they can contribute to development of our society. Number 5, the USSA PSC PSI partnership. Long overdue. In 2017, a MOA was signed, and hopefully this coming March or April, we will start the implementation of the sports management certificate to be given by the United States Sports Academy in partnership with the Philippine Sports Commission. Number 6, we will revive also the PSC Korea Institute of Sports Science lecture series, wherein sports science experts from KISS in Korea will come to the Philippines, or if it is still online, will conduct sports science lecture series on the advances in sports. So sports psychology, biomechanics, strength training, among others. And number 7, as we have known as lacking in our country, we need to have more volunteers, and PSC is in the process of establishing the Philippine Youth Sports Volunteers that will serve as its arm in the local government to further promote sports development and grassroots sports. And of course, number 8, we are finalizing the MOU with CHED, with DepEd, with LDU, and the NSAs to make sure that we are looking at the same direction in terms of the sports development program of our country. Number 9, which is very important, the establishment of a PSC research grants, and the plan for holding a research summit is in the making. PSC, I think, will just make some announcement because we need to strengthen research in the country, and we need the partnership of the CHED and the higher institution in the country to do research for sports. And number 10, sports consultative meetings with LGUs. The PSC would like to know what are the needs of the local government in terms of sports programs, sports development, and PSC is providing manpower, human resource, and experts in order to assist our LGUs. Number 11, you have the strengthened Batang Pinoy. So we would like to make sure that when we start the Batang Pinoy after COVID, we will be able to have an improved Batang Pinoy program that will really strengthen the identification of potential champions in our people. And of course, sports for all. And last but not least, we have to attend to the need of the women in sports. And I think Commissioner Celia Kiram is very much active in this endeavor, even if it is online. And we must be encouraged by the fact that Dr. Rosan Dietz told us that if we want to be successful, maybe we can go into the women in sports because it is not very much competitive. And so we need to make sure that women in sports, as well as the handicap or our Paralympics, will also be attended to. So 13, these are just some of the programs of the PSC. You might be wondering what we are doing at the Philippine Sports Commission. Well, they are not sleeping. They are actively thinking on what to do this in spite of the pandemic. Okay. So to highlight the program of the PSC at the grassroots level, of course, we have Larot Saya, Sports Clinic, Batang Pinoy, IP Games. But the Children's Games is making an impact, not only because it is recognized by the UNESCO, and by the way, this is the first time that UNESCO has acknowledged such a program, and we are very proud that PSC and the Philippines is in the lead. The Children's Games so far had conducted to almost 10,000 kids, bringing joy, laughter, and participation among our younger generation. From Marawi, the war-ravaged area in Marawi, from the mountains of Benguet to the cities of Davao, Cebu, among others, Children's Games will continue to bring joy to children and give hope and make sure that everyone will be given some opportunities to participate. And of course, let's not forget that other organizations and institutions are also promoting grassroots sports. And among them, of course, is the Department of Education, where they regularly hold the Palarong Pambansa. We have the famous Milo Grassroots Sports Program, the Milo Best, the Milo Little Olympics. We also have the Junior NBA Camps, I think, by Alaska. We have the Siglakas and Kasibulan by football. We have sports clubs in many parts of the country. And I would like to highlight a grassroots sports program of my friend, Professor Ramos, Gregorio Ramos Jr., used to be from MSU and then presently at CMU. He is actually advocating this and organized this way back in the 1980s and presently producing talented athletes for the universities in Manila and other cities. So these actually are part of grassroots sports. And we can make sure that with these activities, we can add and strengthen grassroots sports development by making sure that we understand what concept we are looking into and where we are going in terms of the objectives. So let's have this grassroots sports development pyramid. And this is common. We start with the promotion, talent identification, selection, development, talent reserve, membership to the youth team, and then finally to the elite team before they proceed to their sporting careers like coaching, playing in the professional leagues, training, and officiating. So this is the pyramid of sports development from the grass to the top. And I would like to present to you now the Grassroots Sports Development Program of the PSC that we have designed. We call it the Smart ID system. It is a pathway to grassroots sports development and excellence, grassroots to greatness, playground to podium, using the Smart ID system. So when you say Smart ID system, it is sports mapping, action research, talent identification. This is how we identify talents. And with the presence of the NAS, by the way, National Academy of Sports, has been put into law, and it is now in the planning stage in preparation for its opening. And we are very proud that our team leader in the SMART team, Professor Joy Reyes, who is a member of the PSC as MSAS team, is the present executive director. So let's start with the steps in the pathway to sports development. Step one is the promotion. Okay, so who are involved in the promotion? Okay, we have the family, the schools, the community, the government, the sports association, the private corporation, and the media. So this list of stakeholders are partners in the promotion of grassroots sports. And one way to make sure that we promote it positively is to make sure that it is for awareness. We want to make people aware of the benefits of participating, the result that they will get if they participate, and of course, if they understand the benefits that they get, they will appreciate, and eventually we will encourage them to be active. That means to action, from awareness to appreciation to action. So here we need to make sure that the local government are having sports programs during weekends, activities during fiestas. The schools should be very active in terms of promoting club sports, and other activities, improve physical education so that the skills of the students in the PE classes can be transformed into their activities when they go out after school. So promotion. The wider we have the base, the more chances that when we go to step 2, which is talent identification, okay, Smart ID, we will be able to identify more talent. And how do we do that? Okay, first is we make use of the Smart ID. When we say Smart ID, this is a scientific way of determining the potential of an athlete. So we make use of testing, anthropometry tests, performance skills tests, and the result will be brought to a data bank, processed by an apps like the Smart Mats, okay, and provide information on what sport the kid, given the result, will have potential. Okay, so the Smart ID. Here, it is the testing. And the SMART team of the Philippine Sports Institute, through the MSAS, members of the MSAS, have been conducting testing during the Palaro, during the Batang Pinoy, and even during the activities of the PSC. Second is we get to identify talents from the competition, and that is the Palarong Pambansa. We know who are the top 5 in track and field 100-meter dash. We know who are the champions in karate do at this weight category, and etc. And so down the regional meets and the local meets, the Batang Pinoy, and the club sports competition, we can identify potentials. Okay, so the Smart ID is a more scientific way of identifying, because through testing, okay, through competition, we identify talent because they already excel, and there will be some who will be identified through scouting. And one example is Commissioner Fernandez found a video showing a kid doing all tumblings in a series of Sobrang dami. Sabi ko, talo si Yulo doon, if you can see it. Okay, so that's the Smart ID step 2, talent identification. What we have done at PSC through PSI, we organized the SMART team, okay, technical expert and monitoring, wherein we conducted among teachers, among physical educators, among volunteers, the proper way or proper protocol of measuring the tests that we have to conduct. So they were taught how to correctly get measurements so that it is more reliable and it is more valid. Okay, so from the promotion, we make more kids play. From among the population that we have promoted, we test and identify talent. Now we bring them to the third step, which is talent selection, and we call them the smart kids. Okay, smart kids means kids identify for development in sports. And how do we do that? We place the data using the technology like the sports mats and other apps. This will process and evaluate based on the result of their performance in agility, speed, endurance, leg power, among others. And it will give us recommendation on what possible sport that kid, based on the performance result, will be a potential. Okay, that's a more scientific way. And other countries are doing that. Second is the top performers in the Palarong Pambansa. Since we are not yet able to conduct face-to-face, we can make use of the winners in competition like Palarong Pambansa, Batang Pinoy, regional, and local club meets as kids to be included in the selection process. So apart from the data, we get to identify and select kids who are already winners. And then we bring them to step 4 for talent development. So we call that SMART Pool. And pool means providing optimal opportunities for learning their sport. And here you provide training by establishing sports training camps. That means we need to have regional training camps because we don't want to uproot the kids away from their parents, that it becomes a factor in their performance and participation. We have sports academies scattered all over the country, and we have the NAS as the National Sports Academy, so that the best of the best can be placed there and become the training center for future national athletes. And of course, we have the Sports High School, a contribution of the Department of Education in the promotion of better athletes for our country's representation. So, under the talent development, who are the players? Here we have the national coaches. So, in their regular teams, they have their coaches, but when they are placed in the talent development part of the pathway, the national coaches or the elite coaches will be providing them with the training, plus the support of sports science specialists, nutrition, sports massage, sports physiology, biomechanics, strength training, and conditioning. This eventually will help strengthen their talent and develop further. Okay, and of course there will be continuous testing, pre-test, and then regular monitoring of the result, and then post-test whether they have improved. I remember the Chinese system wherein they test all the kids in the school, they get those who are in the higher percentage, bring them to a camp, train them and test them. Those who failed to improve are sent back to their schools. The rest are being trained further. So parang ganito na rin ito. Then of course, from those who were trained in the SMART pool, they become members of the SMART Core or the Talent Reserve. This is where we continue to provide training in the regions and or in the national training centers. We add international coaches, our national coaches for training and for exposures. And of course, the best from among the core will represent our country as member of the youth team to the international youth competition, and of course, moving forward to become members of the elite team. So this is a simple pathway that we would like to follow to make sure that every person or child will have the opportunity, because we will start from the ground. We're not going to wait for somebody to shine in the palaro, but we will give even those who have not played the chance to be identified if their performance qualify. Okay, so this is step 1, promotion. Step 2, talent identification. Step 3, talent selection. And this is where we are at the PSC right now. We have already gathered the data. We have identified the winners, but we need to purchase the application so that the data we have gathered can be placed and analyze to come up with a result. So hopefully we can go to step 4, step 5, step 6, and 7 as a pathway for those who want to go into the sport for glory pathway. Okay, so that's a simple illustration of what we plan. And of course, when we talk about the SMART team, this is what they have been doing. They measure the height, weight, arm span, sitting height. They measure the performance tests like the leg power, the arm strength, agility, speed, and cardiovascular endurance. By the way, these are common in other countries also, and we just have patterned the test. And in the early 90s, I think the team of Professor Joy Reyes already conducted this talent development program, and we are just enhancing so that we can come up with a more strong program implementation. And see, these are physical educators trained to conduct. And that means when they do that, when they return to their physical education classes, when they conduct the testing, we are sure that the results are valid and reliable. And we are hoping that DepEd will actually meet with PSC, or PSC can meet with DepEd to come up with a unified set of tests, because we know that DepEd, they have their own set of tests. So para isa na lang, para common yung measurement, it can be used to analyze data for talent identification. We would like to have a common set of tests for physical fitness in the schools and for talent identification test of the PSC. So we are waiting for a possible response kung okay sila, or we can come up with a compromise. Ano bang dapat na idagdag or alisin or palitan? But it is important that isa lang ang pwede nating gamitin para magamit sa dalawang purpose. Fitness test for the students of PE, talent identification for the PSC. Okay, now we go to the challenges. I know we have a lot of challenges facing today, and we cannot ride on the euphoria of winning the SEA Games Championship. And by the way, only Chairman Ramirez, I think Chairman Ramirez is the lucky charm of the Philippine sport, and hopefully it will be rubbed on to the Olympics. So baka magkaroon tayo ng first gold under the PSC chairman's leadership with his commissioners. So what are the challenges? One, we need to enhance grassroots sports participation campaign, and that is Sports for Life. Kasi pag sabi natin participation para maging magaling na player, some who are not interested into that will not participate. So we need to promote at the grassroots level a campaign for sports for life. That means participation because this is good for them, this will make them healthy, strong, etc. Not necessarily to become champions. We want more people, more kids to participate. So we would like to promote the 3 A's: awareness, appreciation, and action. Okay. Number 2, adequate funding. Okay. So maybe this is very controversial, but if you have a very good sports leader, they can find ways to source out fund. Okay. Government subsidy and private and corporate sponsorship should be maximized. In the US, a lot of sports are funded or supported by corporations, individuals, and businesses. So we need to make sure that ma-maximize natin yung mga resources ng private companies or corporate companies because they can also help in our sports development. Excuse me. Third, continuing education. We need qualified and competent coaches for grassroots. Kasi pag ang mga coaches na nag-start to train our athletes na injured dahil hindi alam ang process, they are not fair because they treat unequally the athletes, more likely dropouts will be higher. We need qualified and competent coaches so that the experiences of those who get into sport is very good, memorable, and therefore they will be able to use their experiences for lifelong practices. And that is where we need the establishment of national standards and requirements for coaching, and that is what PSC's coaching certification program is looking into. Okay, next is the technology-based training and assessment. That means we need to utilize the advances in technology in sports training and assessment. Dapat ka-graduate na tayo sa paggamit ng mata-mata. Pagtingin lang, ay may talent siya. Or law of relativity. Pag relative ni mayor, ni congressman, ni principal, aba, pwedeng maging athlete kahit kulang ng talent. So we need to make sure that technology-based training and assessment is included in the way we deal with grassroots sports development. Next is sports infrastructure and facilities. We need to make sure that we have available and accessible sports facilities. Nowadays, we still lack facilities for some communities. But we have a lot of schools with facilities that during weekend, they are not used because it is not allowed. Is there a possibility that merong law na magsasabi na during weekend, the community can gain access to sports facilities in the school? Anyway, mga students rin naman nila ang mga maglalaro, parents na mga students nila, and it is also funded by the government. Maybe just the process, the procedure should be clear. But we need to make sure that those who want to play will have access to facilities. Okay? Next is player development pathway. We need to make sure that the NSAs, lahat ng sports association, merong clear pathway for their athletes' development. Merong clear pathway ang DepEd sa pag-develop ng kanilang athletes, ng AngChed, and even the PSC. Unless we do that, we cannot have a good sports development program and excel in a lot of sports if we do things differently. But we aim to the same goal. So we need to have a clear pathway for grassroots sports. Next is strong leadership and governance. This is very important. Qualified and competent sports leaders and effective management should be available for grassroots sports and even for sports in general. Okay, there are many people who are good leaders who have the qualification but not given the opportunity. I think we need to make sure that people we hire, people we place in position to develop sports are actually possessing the qualification and the competencies to make sure that the program will prosper. Next is volunteers in sports. Okay, so when we say volunteers in sports, if you notice, every SEA Games, Asian Games, Olympics, they are recruiting for thousands of volunteers. And that is where the value of volunteers in sports come, because it helps make sports competition, sports events successful. And for us to be successful in this endeavor, we need to make sure that we have volunteers in every municipality, barangay, province, because they can help in the development of sports through their volunteerism. Okay? Now we go to the next, which is the reforms in sports. We need to revise, review sports policies, laws, and guidelines. And one highlight that we have to emphasize here is maybe PSC can write a proposal or make a position paper, submit to the DILG so that we can make use, as what Mr. Golanes had said, we can make use of sports as one of the requirements for governance. So when it is there, Therefore, sports will be given emphasis, will be given budget, will be given human resources, and most likely we will have better sports programs. Okay? And this next is very important. Quality physical education. When I was in the elementary and even in high school, my PE teacher was my English teacher. So what do you expect? Okay, so we need to have quality school physical education, not only in terms of the curriculum, but also in terms of the facilities, the equipment, the faculty teaching, and of course the resources. We need to make sure that physical education is given importance. And I think Dr. Rosandis highlighted the importance of schools in the development of elite sports. Okay. Next is improve school sports programs, either in competition or in club sports. I hope DepEd can come up with a study on the number of kids participating in the palaro and how often that it is changed. Like for example, in 5 years time, paulit-ulit ba yung mga participants or are there new faces that are added every year that there is competition? If the percentage is very low, therefore we have just a continuing process of repeating the same participation because they are the only ones trained. So maybe if DepEd can have a talent ID among their students in every school, just imagine if you conduct trials for all students in the athletics, 100, long jump, dami sigurong pwedeng ma-discover even if they were not identified when they get into the school. So we need to improve school sports program, not only in the schedule, because when you have no fixed schedule, coaches cannot plan their training program, and therefore there will be less development of athletes. So we need to make sure that a more sustainable sports program, competition are well programmed, that the schedules are actually identified so that coaches can plan and athletes can train properly. And finally, we need to strengthen research capability and productivity. And I would like to encourage higher education institutions, especially those who are requiring theses for their students, to come up with research beyond just the finding of physical fitness, but also in helping strengthen research in sports development by making sure that your study contributes to sports development. So sana maraming pwedeng maging partner ang PSC, and if the National Research Sports Summit will push through, we would like to have more physical educators, researchers to join in helping sports in the country develop by conducting research. Okay, so those are the challenges. Now, for my conclusion, I would like to say that grassroots sports is about starting them young. Okay, grassroots sports development is not just the product, that means production of outstanding athletes, but grassroots sports development is primarily about expanding opportunities for awareness, appreciation, and active participation among the youth to enjoy and gain benefits from sport and physical activity participation. Grassroots sports development is not just the responsibility of one institution or agency like the PSC or the DepEd, but a cooperative of all partnership of all the influencers of sports. So we need to have a strong partnership of all the influencers so that we can bring the grassroots sports development to a higher level. Strengthening sports in the Philippines requires a unified pathway to grassroots sports development. And I think it's high time that all the stakeholders will have to sit down and plan and chart the pathway for sports development in the country. And sustainable grassroots sports development programs will not only produce outstanding elite athletes, but more significantly, develop a healthy, strong, fit, peaceful, socially responsible, and productive citizenry. So I would like to share with you the message of Chairman Ramirez. He said, the success of the Elite Athletes Program depends largely on grassroots development. If we strengthen grassroots sports, we strengthen the prospect of elite sports. William I. Ramirez, PSE Chairman. And I would like to leave you with this statement that together, from here on, together, let us make this happen. Together, let us help build a better future and stronger society for sports in the Philippines by becoming active partners in promoting grassroots sports, not only for glory, but more significantly, sports for life in our families, schools, and community. Thank you very much for listening.
Alright, maraming salamat po, Professor Henry Daut. Again, palakpakan po natin si Prof. Virtual round of applause. I know, yan, nakikita ko yung mga participants natin. Yan. Maraming salamat po, Prof. And thank you everyone for your active participation. And no, some nakita namin while we are on our lecture, nagno-notes. Some of them are also taking notes sa kanilang mga phone on this lecture. Very comprehensive, sobrang siksek, sobrang dami pong tinuro sa atin and shinare ng ating guest speaker, si Professor Henry Daut. Before we do that, before we move to our open forum, we will now take this time to ask a few participants po. Kayo po, for your reactions dun po sa lecture na binigay sa atin ng ating guest speaker na si Professor Henry Daut. Kung meron po sa inyong gusto mag-share ng kanilang thoughts and insights po sa mga natutunan nyo this afternoon, can you raise your hand and we will give you time. Matatawagin po namin kayo ngayon to share kung ano po ang mga reactions ninyo sa ating lecture bago tayo mag-move forward to our open forum. Raise hand nyo po, Alright. We have nag-raise ng hand si Sir... unahin natin tong si Sir DepEd from SDO. Sir Joseph, Sir Harley Joseph, can you unmute?
Yun daw yung bagong variant. Hello po, sir.
Sir Harley, magandang hapon.
Apo, good afternoon din po, sir.
Sir Harley, pwede po ba naming malaman kung saan po kayong where you're affiliated po?
Apo, sir, dito po ako sa SDO Caloocan.
Mm-hmm.
Teacher po. At the same time, coach din po, trainer dito sa school namin sa Eulogio Rodriguez Elementary School po. Actually, ngayon po, sir, nagbibigayan po kami ng module din po. Pero maganda po yung naging talk po ni sir about do sa grassroots po. Kasi yan po talaga ang magiging batayan ng what I mean yung batayan ng mga player natin habang lumalaki po sila. Kagaya nga po, ako po 8 years na rin po, mabanggit ko rin din po, 8 years na rin po ako nagko-coach ng badminton team sa aming city po. Ang pinakahuling, lagi ko pong placing din nasa NCR, kaya lang di rin po kami makalusot kasi iba rin po ang competitive pagdating sa mga ibang city like Quezon City, like Marikina. Siguro dahil dun sa grassroots din po, siguro simula pa lang dapat mga grade 3 aalagaan na natin yung mga bata. Grade 3 to grade 4 kung tatahakin talaga natin yung sports na yun. Kaya lang, malungkot lang din po sir, minsan yung mga natitraining na natin bata, yung kumbaga naumpisa na po natin, minsan kasi may mga high school hindi na po nakikater dahil minsan papasok yung bata rito, wala namang coach na available na magtuturo sa kanya. Kaya minsan yung bata nasasayang din po. Bali, ganun din po, sir. Thank you po, sir.
All right. Thank you, Sir Harley, sa iyong insights. Magtawag po ulit tayo. May nag-raise po ng hand from Pasig City. Si Sir Ryan Mangali. Sir Ryan, can you... all right, sir. Can we ask if...
Good afternoon po. Good afternoon.
All right, sir.
So, my camera is not working. So, may question lang po regarding po sa grassroots program. So, ako po si Ryan Mangali po. I'm a teacher also sa Rizal High School. as well as a coach. I'm handling yung Pasig Rizal High School Basketball Girls. Question ko lang po regarding po sa grassroots program kasi yun din po ang issue namin right now, especially po sa DepEd regarding sa program po ng Basketball Girls. It was not introduced po from elementary. So ang struggle po ng mga coaches, pagtungtong po ng high school is parang zero knowledge kasi nga wala namang active program ng elementary sa Basketball Girls. So yun lang po sana yung aking concern. Can we like any program or competition para po ma-cater din po yung mga aspirants din natin na basketball girls para pagtungtong nila ng high school is medyo advanced na or skilled level na po ang kanilang mga skills po. Salamat.
Alright, sir, before we answer the question ni Prof. Henry, we will now turn over this to our moderator, si Miss Marian. Hello, ma'am. I'll turn this over to you po para po masagot din po ni Professor Henry. Thank you po.
Okay, good afternoon once again. We will be in entertaining questions, but before that, we would like to remind everyone that in the case that your questions will not be entertained or accommodated in our open forum, all of it will be included in the data processing. So no data will be wasted because everything will be turned over for research. So actually, Sir Professor Henry, maybe you can answer that question. Then we have 3 live questions that will be following that current question.
Yeah, thank you very much, Sir Ryan. Actually, that's very true. Kasi when you start a program, mag-offer ka ng competition or team to be established in the school, but you are not including it in the curriculum for physical education. So you really will be looking for saan ba sila mag-aaral ng basketball, for example, sa basketball girls. Siguro it's more about looking into the curriculum of the physical education in the elementary so that the competencies that you're looking for will be developed there. Kasi physical education, may team sports, ano bang kasama sa mga subjects na ituturo sa physical education ng elementary? Is basketball included? Kaya merong basketball team na kasama ang competition ng elementary? Kasi why are you offering an event that is not being developed in your school, in the Department of Education? So para sa akin, anything that we add to a competition like sa palaro or sa regional meet should be complemented by the program in the development of the athletes. Or else it becomes a self-reliant on the part of the students or the pupils to learn basketball outside. So siguro isa yun sa dapat titingnan na kung mailalagay tayo na event sa palaro or sa regional or sa local meets, meron bang developmental stages na binibigay sa school, sa physical education, sa club sports? So baka pwede ninyong ma-recommend sa DepEd to look into para bang kung anong meron dito na ilalagay, dapat meron ditong developmental program. So why para sa akin kasi bakit natin isasali ang isang bagay na hindi naman nakikita dito sa atin? Parang ganon. So if we want to have quality basketball players, for example, specific sa basketball, then we should have programs in physical education or in club sports na may basketball doon. Then most likely, talents will be developed there. Kaya nga sabi ko, ang mangyayari, maglalagay ka ng event, pero wala ka namang stages na ginagawa dito, talagang mahihirapan ang coach. Na pagdating sa next level, yung fundamentals hindi pa masyadong maganda. So I hope I answered your question, Sir Ryan.
Okay, thank you so much, Prof. Maybe call on for our live question number 1, Mr. Hiton Soberano of Davao City.
So yung question ko po is, how do you actually measure yung impact ng isang grassroots program? And ang second din po, kasi you've raised earlier about the research on sports development, you're providing grants about that po, di ba? How about sports for development, like for example po on mental health, on gender equality, on peace building? So do you also provide grants for those kinds of research? So yun po.
Yeah, thank you very much sa question mo, Sir Coach. Yung first na tanong mo is on, kasi yung sa research naman, it is a general na it encompass many things. So kasama na doon yung well-being, yung psychology. The PSC is coming up with a research summit to organize a strong research component for the Philippine Sports Commission. And that is going to be launched, I think, anytime this year. And we would like to inform you that we will be partnering with CHED, especially with the Department of Research, so that we can come up with a lot of research topics that our higher education researchers can go into and to be supported by the PSC. Kasi yun ang kulang talaga natin. We rely so much on the result of the researchers from other countries and apply it to us. And you know, Filipinos are different from Americans. We eat different food. We have different maybe genetic components. But when we talk about research, we need to make sure that it is relevant to us so that we can make use of it. Now, may I ask yung second question mo? Yung first question mo kanina?
How can we measure yung impact ng grassroots programs? So yun po. Follow-up question ko lang din po dun sa on the research po. Pwede po ba kami mag-avail nun in your partnership with the... Kasi po meron po kaming ginagawang project on mental health and then we want to be partnered with academe. So now hearing about this, if we can channel this through PSC in the program po ninyo na grants on that kinds of research, baka pwede po namin gawa ng paraan. So I'm very interested po in partnering with you po, ang club namin, because of the project that we have on mental health din po.
Yeah, thank you very much. Actually, it is in the final stage of preparation, and I think one of the senior consultants of the PSCs, Dr. Serge Opena, is finalizing the process on how institution can partner with PSC, the procedure in applying for grants, and the sport-specific agenda that any individual researcher can avail. So we will be making that as part of our preparation, and thank you for your inquiry so that we can include that. And to your question on how we can look at the impact, I think it's first is we need to do some assessment on the number of participants in sports activities. And in the Philippines, nobody had studied that. What percentage of the population are engaged in physical activity? Wala po tayong study niyan. So we do not know how we can approach in terms of sa mga bata, sa mga youth, sa mga adults, sa elderly, etc. And that is where research is really important. So we need help, especially among our HEIs, to come up with research that are relevant for sports development. So if you want to know anong impact, first is the number of participants who are actually participating in the program of PSC, the Children's Games. We have almost 10,000 now, and we would like to make sure that we have data on how many are encouraged to do more activities. So that's very necessary. Second is how many in the schools are also offering programs that will allow people or kids to participate. So the impact is not immediate because we first need to come up with an expanded base. The more kids participating in sports activities, we need to document that. And PSC is making sure that every children's games is recorded in terms of the number of participants, the gender of the participants, the age category, so that in a certain period, we can have a good view on what is happening in terms of participation among women, participation among men, participation among younger generation. Then plans for strategies to enhance and strengthen can follow. So importante po yun. And ang sinabi nga natin na the wider the base, the greater chances of finding talents because we have more choices.
Thank you, Prof. And thank you, Coach Hilton.
Yes po, thank you po.
Thank you,
Now let's call on Alvin Escalante of DepEd.
Kasi sir, one of our problem in recruitment athletes, most of the time, yung support po ng school. You made mention about the support of school a while ago. Kasi po, some of the athletes, kaya nagwi-withdraw sila. Yung parents nila, wini-withdraw sila sa team or sa varsity team because of the academic performance. Because some of the teachers may not be considerate doon sa sa academic performance po ng bata. And my question, sir, is there any policy yung DepEd na makakatulong sa mga student athletes natin when it comes to academic performance?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much, Sir Alvin. Actually, when it comes to policies for DepEd, dapat DepEd ang nagpo-provide. But anyway, we can suggest. First is parents send their children to the school for academics. Priority yon. But because of talent, they entered sport. Therefore, their participation in the educational process is divided into two: athletics or sports and academics. And it is the responsibility of the institution or DepEd to make sure that there is balance in terms of providing those opportunities for their children. And what is happening actually, as the way I observe, because I have many neighbors who are also athletes, if they are an athlete, they are engaged more on sports. Sometimes academics is neglected. And hopefully, if DepEd can make a guideline, a policy on how to balance their education and athletics, then more parents will be supportive because they know that even if their children play, their academic concerns will also be attended. Just imagine if you are an athlete on the first level, you will be absent for 1 week. Then when you go to the next level, you will be absent for 2 weeks because mag-training pa kayo, di ba? Pagdating sa regional, magiging 1 buwan na yun. Kasi nga kailangan may camp pa kayo dyan, di ba? So, pagdating sa palaro, the longer or the higher the athlete goes to the rank, the level of competition, the more absences that he or she will incur. The question is, what is the school or DepEd is doing to compensate for that? Are they providing tutorial? Are they providing makeup classes? Or what other means so that those absences can be recovered in terms of the knowledge that they should gain? That's why ang mga teachers sa ibang subjects magagalit kasi ina-absent-absentan lang ako ng mga athletes na ito. Akala mo mga bright, di ba? Parang ganun kuminsan yung ano. So we need to make sure that the school needs to clarify to the faculty or the teachers that athletics is part of the educational system and they need to be part of the solution rather than part of the problem in preventing athletes to learn. So dapat meron kayong mga tutorial classes dyan na binibigay kasi nga pag absent ng absent, anong matutunan? Diba? So we need to make sure that there are policies to ensure that absences of the athletes are covered by certain practices that will allow them to recover from their loss in the classroom setting, and making sure that the faculty in the school understand the role of sports and physical education in the total development of the child. So para bang hindi dapat na dahil English ako or math ako, magagalit ka sa athlete dahil magre-represent siya ng school. Diba? And they will be training hard to make sure that they will be bringing honor and glory to the school. And yet, they are looked differently by other subjects. So, we want that to happen na ang mga teachers become supportive in terms of making other ways to compensate for the absences. So, baka may mga programs dapat na gagawin ang DepEd to really address the absences of athletes when they go to competition. So, ang parents, kung alam nila na i-take care yan ng school, pwedeng ipag-aral. Kasi imagine, their kid can become excellent and they can gain scholarship in high school and in college. Paano na lang kung hindi nakapasa kasi hindi nabigyan ng suporta, hindi na maka-high school, hindi na maka-college, magiging tambay na. So I hope guidelines among yourself you can recommend para naman gumanda yung academics ng athletes nyo, at the same time, they will be more confident to play. I hope I answered your question, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, sir Alvin and Prof for answering that as well. Now, let's proceed to our live question number 3 from Edgar Namoro of Central Bicol State University of Agriculture, Pasacao Campus.
I would like to address dun sa research. When the PSC will finalize the summit we will be setting up guidelines on the process of application, the programs, the partnership, among others. So I would like you to stand by for announcement, and we will be inviting you, I think, for the summit so that you can participate in shaping the research agenda of Philippine sports. So malaking bagay po ito sa atin na research is not given emphasis in our country, especially in sports, and this is the right time that we can do help Philippine sports through research.
Okay, thank you for that, Prof. We have a question here from Helen Rose of Ilocos Norte. If the PSC consider a sustainable grassroots development program, will it be better if they can come out with a joint agreement with the ILG for the creation of a permanent local sports coordinator?
Okay. That's very nice suggestion, Mama. No? But one thing is, I will have to go back to the suggestion of Mr. Giovanni Gulanes that unless sports becomes a requirement for the seal of good governance, then sports will never be an emphasis or a priority for some local government whose local leaders are not into sport. So what PSC can do perhaps is recommend to somebody in the Senate or in the Congress or to the ILG to come up with a policy statement that they can be recommended for creation of a bill, a law, or whatever it is to require for the creation of a permanent sports office because it is very important. So ang PSC naman, hindi naman ano yan, dadaan sa process kasi sa mga requirements. And it is only the ILG when we convince the local government units the value of sports to their constituents and the benefits it will bring them that they have to propose it actually. And I believe during the summit in Davao City, the local government there was very supportive of having sports included in the seal of governance, local government.
Okay, crystal clear, Professor. We have another live question from Ivan Stewart Saldaheno.
Good afternoon po. Good afternoon po, Henry nga. So, kasi last month, there's an online press conference between the PFL club owners, and they brought the possibility of somehow bringing the youth players straight to the professional league, to the PFL. So, do you think it's a good idea to bring youth players to the pros, straight to the pros, instead of settling for school sports? If not, what should be the role of the professional leagues and the professional clubs about this?
Thank you very much. Actually, when we talk about sports development, exposure is very vital. When we have athletes being exposed to competition that is higher in terms of the level they are presently having, it will help strengthen and enhance their level of skills. However, there is a tendency that because of the incentives provided by the leagues, they may end up pursuing more on the professional rather than on other aspects. So para sa akin, yung mga professional leagues like PSL, like PBA, can help nurture talents without plucking them out immediately. Because the future of the child is not on sports, it's on the education that he or she will gain. So ang iba naman kasi, ginawang career yung sports. So that's okay. But for us to make sure that education is a primary priority, dapat doon papunta. And leagues trying to bring amateur athletes or young athletes to the league, there's no problem with that because, as I've said, it's a form of strengthening their skills and competencies. However, we just make sure that they will be advised not to give up on the educational component of their careers. Kasi kawawa naman, naglaro, hindi nakapagtapos, napilay, saan na ngayon pupunta? Parang ganon. So, I still believe that education is a very important aspect, especially sa grassroots, because as you grow, you can strengthen your skill and still pursue your sporting careers. But when you are out of education, then problems will be very big after your sporting career. Kasi wala kang fallback position eh, wala kang nakuha, maglalaro ka lang. So hanggang magiging assistant coach, parang trainer, ganun na lang. Whereas if you have something to show out of the educational achievement that you have, added bonus yung pagiging athlete mo. Kasi most of the companies now are hiring a lot of athletes with skills. So, I don't question yung i-hire or i-laruin sa league because it's part of the developmental stage. You expose them to higher level of competition, but it should be given emphasis sa mga athletes natin sa schools that education is still the best way to a brighter future.
Okay, thank you so much, Sir Ivan. Now let's proceed to another question from DepEd Dasmariñas City's Anthony Valdez. Prof, sabi niya, grassroots sports program is very good. We produce competitive athletes in the division, provincial, regional, national, and even in international competitions. But in times they are recruited junior or elite team, they are not performing well because they are not familiar with their because they are familiar with their grassroots coaches. So the question is, may program ba ang PSC for grassroots coaches to become part of national coaching team? And that is intended for national team coaches.
Okay. I'm very happy that your players are excelling in various competition. But as to the selection of coaches for the elite team, it is the NSAs that decides. It's not the PSC. So, ang tanong is, ano bang criteria for selection of coaches ng NSA ng event mo? Kasi doon ka magbabase kung baka mag-qualify yung athlete, yung coaches mo. And secondly, there are certification programs that are being offered by NSA, DepEd, CHED, and PSC for coaching certification wherein we would like coaches to be certified para meron silang seal of excellence na qualified sila mag-coach. That means that they went through the process of learning the fundamentals, the sports science in coaching that will make them better coaches. So you are very lucky because you have developed good athletes, but sometimes the reality is our athletes will have to leave us if they go to higher level of development. So kung sa elementary, hindi ka naman pwedeng sumama sa kanila sa high school kasi elementary coach ka. Sa high school, kukunin naman sila ng mga colleges, especially from the provinces to Manila. So parang bakit ako hindi kasama? Pero what we should be happy about is we have developed, we have produced outstanding athletes. Parang relay ito. You pass the baton after you have developed your athletes. Now, if you want to become a member of the coaching staff, then make sure that you have the credentials that will qualify you to be such. So ang sa akin lang is, let us not be, para bang, wag nating ipagdamot ang ating mga athletes just because ayaw natin silang mapunta sa ibang coaches. If it is for the benefit of the athletes to go higher in their level of aspiration, then we as coaches should be very supportive because it also brings pride to who we are as coaches and to what we have produced. So yun ang dapat na nasa isip. Kung minsan kasi sa experience rin ng ibang coaches sa DepEd, sila yung magaling nag-champion na coach. Pagdating sa next level, ibang coach ang magdadala. Ibang usapan na yon. So, sa DepEd na lang natin yun ibigay kung paano nila isettle. Kasi dito, we want equality. Kung sino ang nag-develop na maging champion, dapat rewarded siya or compensated by bringing him or making him the head coach. Kasi kung minsan sabi, ay hindi naman yan marunong, tsamba lang na nag-champion. Hindi naman yun ang usapan eh. Ang usapan siya ang champion coach. But if there are certain criteria for DepEd in selecting their coaches, sa kanila yon. So dapat doon natin ibalik yung kanilang baka pwedeng ma-revise ang criteria. But for me as a coach, I will be very happy if the athletes that I have produced were taken to become better athletes in the next level because that is some honor na may nagawa ako na nakita ng iba para maging magaling yung athlete ko. And when, just like for example si Amahit, why should I not be happy? Naging champion, naging national team, naging coach. Ay, sobra pa yon. Pero kung sabi ko, huwag kang pumunta doon, dito ka lang, sana siya pupulutin ngayon, di ba? So, let us be supportive of our athletes, support their dreams for reaching higher, and as coaches, we take pride on what we have contributed to their development. I hope I have answered that.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Here's our final question from IKBF, FKBI, Ray Del Prado. Is Grassroots program aligned in the PE curriculum of public and private schools?
Ang tanong dyan is, may grassroots sports development ba ang DepEd? Kasi PSC kasi itong program natin eh. So, we would like to have a streamline. Dapat doon magagaling yung grassroots development program kasi sila ang ang seedlings for sports talent are all there in the schools. Ang tanong, meron ba silang pathway to sports development within school? Yun ang tanong natin. So, pwedeng i-adapt nila yung ginagawa ng PSC. Meron silang promotion. That means expand the base by teaching better physical education, providing opportunities for club sports, and then developing their sports program. Pwede yon. Then, identification sila, mag-testing sila, talent development, etc. Pwede yon. Pero ang tanong, ano ang talent development program ng DepEd? Kasi ang alam ko, ang nananalo goes to the next rank. If I will give you a statistic of how much we are losing sa DepEd, for example, there are 10 schools in one district at 100 athletes for all the events, basketball, volleyball, etc. So there will be, ilan yun? 1,000 for 100? Tama? So there will be 1,000 athletes competing in one district. But only 100 representing all the events will go to the next level. So ilan ang naiiwan? 900 are not going to go up. Ang tanong, mag-train pa ba kayo na wala naman kayong competition na pupuntahan? More likely no. Diba? Kasi magsasayang ka ng pang-snacks, magsasayang ka ng oras, but you have nowhere to go. So only the 100 continue to train and become better for the next level. Okay. So another 10 district will play in the meet at 100 per district. Only 100 goes to the regional. So there will be 900 athletes plus 900 athletes who are already eliminated in the lower level who will not train as hard as they want to become better because there is no competition to go to kay next year pa. So another 100 lang. And the number increases as we go higher regional and palaro. Yun ang question natin ngayon. Paano natin i-expand ang talent development? So dapat, pag natalo na sila, may pupuntahan pa rin silang mga activities, club sports, recreational activities, or kung ano-ano pa. Or else, computer na yon, mga gadget na yung kanilang katapat dyan. Kasi wala nang training di ba? So the cycle begins. And if you trace the data, yung nanalo or nakarating sa higher level for every school will be the same group of athletes to play on the next level kasi mas may training silang ginawa kaysa doon sa tumigil. And so the cycle continues. So doon lang umiikot doon sa mga elite na nagawa ang selection ninyo. The rest, continue. Pagdating sa next level, eliminated na naman pagka first game kasi wala naman talaga kayong training na ginawa at saka yung level ng skill ninyo hindi umangat kasi hindi kayo nag-continuously train. So, I hope maybe sa sports office ng DepEd, they can look into that. Baka pwedeng magawa ng paraan na magiging year-long training program nila kahit natalo. Parang gano'n.
Okay, so we had a very
Marian,
yes,
Marian,
Professor
I
Henry.
have one very nice question na gusto kong basahin from LGU Batangas from Luigi Cruz. Ang sabi dito, yung po mga batang out of school youth na ayaw po mag-aral pero magagaling at may potential sa kanyang larangan, pwede po ba sila ma-qualified sa mga sports academy natin? Saka tanggapin po ba sila kung ang number one requirements ay dapat nag-aaral? Okay. I think NAS, National Academy of Sports, because this is where our elite youth athletes will go, meron diyang regional. Ang importante dapat dyan, back to school program if they really want to become part of a team sa national. So we need to encourage. Wag natin, sige, pwede ka kahit hindi ka mag-aral, basta mag-train lang. Hindi po pwedeng ganun lang gawin natin. We need to give a bright future by encouraging them to go back to school para magkaroon ng opportunity to become part of the academy. So, sasabihin natin ayaw talaga. We can find ways and means. Pwede kasi yan siya sa Batang Pinoy, hanggang doon lang siya. Maghintay siya kailan sa Batang Pinoy and then mag-champion siya hanggang maging representative siya. But it will take a long process if you don't have a good trainer, you could have a good coach. What we can do sa mga bata, encourage them to go back to school and support them. So importante po yun. Out of school is included in sports development. IPs included in sports development. Persons with disabilities, part po ng sports development ng PSC. So, no one left behind po ang mantra ng Philippine Sports Commission. Every Juan or Maria should be given equal opportunity to gain access to sports participation and development. So I hope na we can spread that good news to everybody and encourage more to participate. Thank you.
Okay, point well taken, Professor Henry. I would like to thank you for a very comprehensive lecture on grassroots sports in the Philippines. Grassroots sports anywhere in the world, including the Philippines, is undoubtedly a breeding ground of future champions, not just in sports, but also in life. Okay, Professor Henry said putting premium on grassroots sports goes a long way in promoting a healthy, strong, and productive citizenry. He also shared two concepts of grassroots sports: the sports for life, which is the general approach, improving citizenry's quality of life. The second one is the sports for glory, which is the specific approach, developing players, coaches, clubs, and competitions. A successful grassroots sports program, however, entails a strong collaboration of all stakeholders, both in the government, spearheaded by the PSC, being the country's lead agency in sports, LGUs, other government agencies such as DepEd and CHED, the private sector, private schools, companies, and sports organizations such as the NSAs and POC, marginalized sectors, the women, the IPs, and the PWDs and the media. Professor Henry also underscored the need to equip human resources needed for grassroots sports to flourish, physical educators, coaches, and volunteers to give children a worthwhile and rich experience. Educating leaders is also a vital concern that he raised. He also highlighted the past and current grassroots development program of the PSC, citing its many gains and challenges over the years. Indeed, winning the country's first Olympic gold medal is still possible with a unified, holistic, solid, and strong grassroots sports development program. Thank you so much, Professor Henry. I've learned a lot today.
Thank you.
All right. Maraming salamat po. Thank you very much, Professor Henry Daut and Ms. Marian Abalayan, for that very cohesive open forum and session synthesis. Again, we want to give you a round of applause, Prof, for the napaka-comprehensive nga na topic. You know, we are bound by time restrictions as usual. Lahat po ng mga questions na were not answered will be included po sa ating data processing. And so wala pong data na nasasayang sa every session na ito. Lahat po ng mga tanong na sinend po sa amin, sa ating mga facilitators, will be turned over for our research. We will now take this time to honor and award the Certificate of Appreciation to our third speaker for the National Sports Summit 2021, and to award the certificate to Professor Henry Daut, may I call our project manager of the National Sports Summit and also the Chief of Staff and the PSI National Training Director, Sir Mark Velasco, to present the certificate to Professor Henry Daud.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much, Professor Henry. As always, the Philippine Sports Commission presents this certificate of appreciation to Professor Henry Daud for his invaluable contribution as a resource speaker, not only as a resource speaker, but an actual worker for the grassroots sports in the country. Given this 11th day of February 2021, signed Chairman William Ramirez of the Philippine Sports Commission. Thank you so much, Professor Henry.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Salamat.